Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I'm Sean Butler. Bugsy Malone's over my shoulder, doing the things that she loves to do. I hope you are all happy and healthy doing the things that you love to do with those that you love to do them with. It is Wednesday. It is your time of the day where you get transfer news, views and clues. And we've got some interesting ones today. Two stories regarding specific players in and out. One, a bit of a kind of curveball because of FFP and PSR and panels and reviews, appeals that have been heard earlier than was previously thought they would be, and the potential ramifications of such. Before we get into it, please do me a favour, guys. Hit the like button for me on the video if you enjoy the content. And please do if you do enjoy it, because it really helps the channel. And I know you always do. You smash it out of the park, and I love you for it. Thank you very much. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Join me on the journey to 25k. Hit the notification bell. And also drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topics. And let's start with the first one that came out yesterday, but I didn't do a video yesterday apart from the one that was dropped late last night about Adrien Rabiot. And can't believe the consistent theme in the comments from that one. Not a single one of you wants anything to do with Rabiot. Interesting. Appreciate your insights. Let's talk about Richarlison though. And the story is that Richarlison is... He is. Stranger saying he's terrible. That story is that Saudi Arabian clubs have prioritised, or the kind of Saudi Arabian system has prioritised a superstar signing this summer. And with the news that Mo Salah is set to stay at Liverpool for Arne Slot's revolution, if you like, then they're going to turn to a different direction. And apparently Richarlison's the guy. And according to the reports, Tottenham might be able to get all of their money back, if not more, for Richarlison. And obviously, that doesn't mean that Richarlison's going to want to leave Tottenham or go to Saudi Arabia, but you kind of think that maybe it wouldn't be a bad move for him, especially if they were going to pay him, I don't know, £750,000 a week or whatever, you know. I'm sure he could get over it with all that money. But it'll be interesting to see whether he actually does want to leave. I'd like to know your thoughts on the player. I mean, I like the person, but the player for me, it's just, I don't feel like we can rebuild a team around him. That being said, when he's been fit this season, he's been very impressive on his day. But I just think he's too, well, you know my story about Richarlison, so I'm not going to kind of tell you too much more about that. I'll let you make up your own mind. I just don't think he's the guy. And if we can get £50 million back or £60 million, however much we actually spent on him, still unclear to me. I think it was 50 plus 10 in add-ons, but whether or not he's hit the metrics to get those add-ons, I'm not sure. But anyway, if we can get £55 million back, you'd take it, wouldn't you? That's a lot of money in a tight market to be able to go again and hopefully this time get it right. And one of the players that Tottenham are linked with this morning happens to cost about £50 million. In fact, there is a release clause for this guy that expires on July the 15th for €60 million, so about £55 million, about the Richarlison money. This player doesn't play as a striker. He plays in, well, he's very versatile. He can play off the right, he can play off the left. He can play as a 10 in an attacking midfielder role. He can play as a midfielder. He's even played defensive midfielder. Back in the day, he even played as a right back, believe it or not. And the name, of course, is Spanish international RB Leipzig player Dani Olmo. Been linked with Tottenham a few times in the past. And the noise is heating up this morning. There's lots of articles out there that he's not short of suitors. Of course he isn't. Apparently Newcastle United are looking at him. Apparently Manchester United are readying a bid for him. Barcelona are also readying a bid for him. But what's interesting is Barcelona are concerned about the timing, that they don't think they're going to be able to have the money together because of their own financial situations to be able to put together a bid to get into the transfer, the release fee window before it expires. Manchester United, again, until the whole Sir Jim Ratcliffe thing is ratified to the point where you know exactly what the intentions are with the money that he's paying, are the Glazers just taking the money off the table and sending it back to New York? Or are they going to pay off some of the debts with it? None of that stuff is clear yet, as far as I'm aware. And so until you know what happens with that, you won't know what Manchester United's situation is like with FFP and PSR. They struggled, all last year in the various transfer windows. The delays around Sofiane Amrabat, getting the deal done. It was a loan fee with a hefty fee, a deal initially with a hefty fee. All of that stuff was because of Manchester United's struggles. So again, Tottenham might have the opportunity to pounce here in a market for a player that's competitive and that you would think in an otherwise system, a team like Barcelona would probably be Dani Olmo's preferred destination, being Spanish, and obviously Barcelona being Barcelona. So it'd be interesting, but here's what I think about the player. He does for me what I think James Maddison is gonna, or it looks like he's struggling to do in a Ange Postecoglou system. But Maddison was at the start in the first 10 games, was on fire before, when he had space to roam and work in. But since then, since the game was compressed and the opposition teams sit there and kind of compress the back line and they make it all very busy, don't give enough space to operate. And James Maddison, whilst he's got very quick feet, is struggling to get the ball out from underneath him and trying to find those killer passes. That's why he's coming deep. And James Maddison isn't known for long balls because in his time and as a player, as a career, he's always played in a Leicester team where he hasn't had to play against low blocks very often. Even in the title-winning year for them, most teams gave Leicester a bit more space. They kind of caught them unaware throughout the season. So it's going to be difficult for James Maddison to adapt. But Dani Olmo, for sure, is a player who has those boxes ticked. I put the stats up, and yesterday I hadn't seen the stats before I got home and edited it, and they did tell the story I thought they would about Adrien Rabiot. But today I have seen the stats, and I will tell you, I'm not sure the stats really reflect a fair comparison of Dani Olmo. It's not like the stats look bad. There's lots of green bars in all of the areas that you want to be, but they're all kind of like 75th percentile. He's a good player, but not a great player in any department, if you believe the stats. I believe Dani Olmo is a very, very gifted player. He's a very mazy dribbler. He can, like I say, he's versatile. He's comfortable off the left, comfortable off the right. He's predominantly right-footed. He's got a wonderful shot on him. He's got a lovely range of passing. He's got really good footballing IQ and vision. And he does get stuck in and plays the team game for Leipzig. He very much will press if that's required, gets back and defensive tackles. He's up there versus other midfielders, other attacking midfielders at the very highest end of the spectrum. He's a creator, a playmaker, and someone that I think would absolutely fit the system. As I say, 60 million euros, I believe, is the fee you'd have to pay. And I just think it makes a lot of sense. I really like the player. I think he scores, I think this season, I think he's done about 26 games in all competitions, about 13 GA. I think his international record for Spain is about similar, a goal or an assist every other game, which is not, sort of blow your mind statistics, but he does more than that. He's very well-rounded and very effective in the playmaking role. And in terms of like shot-creating actions and goal-creating actions, I think they do kind of reflect the sort of effort that he puts in for the team. And I think that he'd be someone that Ange Postecoglou would love. The question mark is, do you spend 60 million euros on a player who is a really good fit for a system, but already has some competition in his most natural position, which is James Maddison's? If he's a straight swap for a Lo Celso, then you're obviously netting 45 million. But at the same time, when you know that players like Olise at Palace and Eze at Palace are up for sale and they come with the homegrown thing, and I don't know if, Olise I think has got a release clause until a certain time this year of about 45 million. You'll have to ask Johnny about that, he knows. But Eze's certainly probably going to, unless he wants to stay at Crystal Palace under Oliver Glasner's new revolution, which is a very impressive start to life for him over there, then you'd think that Eze could go as well. And Eze and Dani Olmo, not too dissimilar, and they're positional play as well. And I think I'd rather go for an Eze. And for all intents and purposes, the rumours are pretty clear to see. I think if you're paying attention to what's going on in the kind of zeitgeist, I think you'll probably agree with me that there's so much kind of white noise in the background that suggests that Tottenham are whining and dining and schmoozing Eze to try to make it as seamless a transfer as possible. So I hope I'm not wrong on that front. So if I had to pick between Eze and Olmo, I would pick Eze. I really would. But if Olmo is the guy, then I'm on board it because I think he's a brilliant player. And listen, if that's what Ange wants, then I am more than okay with it. Let me know your thoughts though, guys. What do you think? The other option, of course, is another name that has been linked and spoken about pretty consistently over the last few months, and that is Nottingham Forest's Morgan Gibbs-White, another player that can kind of sit in that hole. Players a kind of 8, players an aggressive 10, can certainly drift wide, a lot of passion. He can work, he's a workhorse, would tirelessly for the team, certainly but not an issue with the pressing. Miscontrols, dispossessions, pretty few and far between, which I think is a key area for that role for us going forward. And he's obviously English as well, or homegrown as well, and he's young, a lot of upside to his game. Still some question marks about it. I think of the 3 of them, you probably go Morgan Gibbs-White is probably the 3rd of the 3. But listen, you know Daniel Levy, you know he likes to kind of seek out opportunities to leverage people that have got vulnerabilities that are there to exploit in the negotiation stage. As I always say, I think that one of the problems with Daniel Levy is his desire to always see a negotiation as a zero-sum game where someone has to win and someone has to lose. And so if that's the way he goes about it, I don't think he should, but if that's the way he goes about it, then he obviously believes that there's a better situation to exploit in a world where a certain team has to sell, or the pressure is from the player to definitely agree the deal. And because of the news last night that Nottingham Forest's points deduction for FFP that they appealed has been rejected, then you find yourself in a situation where Nottingham Forest sit only 3 points above relegation with 2 games to play, 3 games to play, or 2 games to play. And so Luton are very much still in the fight to stay up. And if Luton do overcome Nottingham Forest and Nottingham Forest get relegated, then Morgan Gibbs-White will 100%, in my opinion, not want to go down with the ship. And I think he will lean and press for a transfer away. Even if Nottingham Forest stay up, there's no guarantee that they would have not also fallen foul of FFP in the next auditing process. Although Brennan Johnson's sale to Tottenham being outside of that previous reporting period, and in the next one, you'd think that on paper, they're probably okay. So there might not be an FFP situation, but Daniel Levy might be sitting there hoping that Nottingham Forest get relegated and then be able to go to Nottingham Forest's chairman and say, you know, here's 35 million quid, take it or leave it. And will Daniel Levy prefer to go for Morgan Gibbs-White at 35 million rather than Dani Olmo at 60 million euros or Eze at probably 65 million pound? Well, it's a bit of a rhetorical question, guys, so I think we know the answer to that. What do you think? Who would you rather have? And again, it's one of those positions where, you know, we definitely need support. We definitely need help in that area. James Maddison needs competition. Lo Celso will be off in all likelihood. He has once again said he's unhappy with the minutes that, or at least that's the story. He's unhappy with the minutes that are getting given to him. So am I, to be honest. I feel like he should have had more minutes in the last few games than he's been given. But in any event, he's out. Maybe you're going to get 10, 12 million for him. And so it is a position that's going to need help and support. But is it a key area? Is it an area where you want to see Tottenham spending the lion's share of any budget? And as I've said a few times, you know, for those of you who understand the rules of FFP, for those of you who can then apply the rules to Tottenham's last set of accounts, there isn't going to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds to spend regardless of Daniel Levy's ambitions this summer. Right? The fact is that Tottenham have a revenue of about £500 million, or it was 550 last year, but with the absence of Champions League, it's going to be more like 480. And despite Tottenham's wage to turnover ratio being 50%, and that included Dyer, Lloris and Harry Kane at the last auditing period, those players are not there anymore. But with the revenue coming down by about 15% and the wages coming down by about the same, then net, and it's difficult to know the specifics, but a net, the wage to turnover ratio is about the same. So when you do some simple maths, you can figure out that, you know, Tottenham will have a typical window of about £100 million, give or take 10%, with then any sales on top. And so are Tottenham going to spend £65 million on Eze when we also need a striker, a proper specific left winger that takes players on, a proper specific 6, a fullback to compete with Destiny Udogie and Pedro Porro, maybe a reserve goalkeeper? Yeah, there's a lot of work to do and not significant funds to do it. And that would be the same, for what it's worth, whether Daniel Levy was in charge or anybody else. So you know, expect that. Don't have expectations that are unreasonable or unrealistic regarding transfer spend, because you'll be disappointed. But at the end of the day, this is the question. Would you go for a Morgan Gibbs-White? Is he of a calibre that's good enough if Daniel Levy can leverage the situation in a world where Forest go down? Or would you rather see Tottenham go after to Eze or to a Dani Olmo if it meant that that would dilute the calibre of the striker or the winger or the six or anyone else that we're going after? Because remember, even though we've got 12 players up for sale, guys, 13 players up for sale according to Paul O'Keefe and the Telegraph, etc., Matt Law, in reality, how often does any team ever sell all the players that are on the list to be sold for money that makes a difference? You know, Chelsea did a good job of it last summer, to be fair, but they had the benefit of their links to Clearlake Capital and Clearlake Capital's links to the PIF. The PIF is an indirect investor in Chelsea via Clearlake Capital. And obviously they, you know, 3 or 4 deals went to Saudi Arabia. So there's a little bit of kind of chicanery in that scenario, for sure. But bending the rules is not breaking the rules, apparently. But are Tottenham going to get that support? Are Tottenham really going to be able to sell 12 or 13 players when most teams in Europe are broke, and FFP and PSR is not something that makes it easier for these teams, it makes it more difficult for them. So there's a game of kind of dominoes that you're playing where I don't necessarily expect it to be the busiest window once again over the entire market, but I do expect Tottenham to try to do their best to get players out the door and try to bulk up that transfer fund. Daniel Levy, Ange Postecoglou has said that there's a lot of business and a lot of work that needs to be done. A lot of players need to go, and a lot of players need to come in. But the overarching question I want to answer, I want you guys to answer, is how do you prioritise someone who can come in and whose primary role, whose best position, is somewhat of a competitive nature for James Maddison? You know, is that the crucial area? Now, I know you might say Eze can play off the left, and Dani Olmo certainly can do a little bit of everything, but I wouldn't say either of them are direct wingers, wing forwards that are take-on specialists. Clever players, quick feet, love to have them in the squad, would absolutely love to have them in the squad. All 3 of them I rate, I really do. But it's about opportunity cost. So let me know how you would do yours, and I'll speak to you on the next one. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always, bye-bye.